Modulation can be defined as the process by which some characteristics, that is amplitude, frequency and phase of the signal called carrier, is varied in accordance with a modulating signal or baseband signal or message signal. So one or more properties of the carrier signal can be varied with a modulating signal. So here we have a modulating signal. Modulating signal or baseband signal and message signal. Now there are different types of modulation. So the type of modulation it can be broadly classified as two types. One is a continuous wave modulation and second is a pulse modulation pulse wave modulation. The continuous wave modulation is further classified as amplitude modulation second angle modulation. The angle modulation are of two types. It can be a frequency modulation and second the phase modulation. The pulse wave modulation are of two types. One, analog pulse modulation and the second one is digital pulse modulation. Now these are the different types of modulation. Now let's discuss about the need of modulation. Or need for modulation. Why we need a modulation? The first need is it is needed in order to match the characteristics of input signal to that of the channel characteristics. So the first need for modulation is it is needed in order to match the characteristics of input signal to that of channel characteristics. The second need is for multiplexing. That is multiplexing is basically made possible due to modulation. So we can say the second need for modulation is multiplexing, and without modulation, multiplexing is not possible. And the third is transmission of low pass signal to a longer distance. So we can say multiplexing is made possible due to modulation. And the third is wireless transmission. Transmission of low pass signal and there are some modulation technique which reduces the effect of noise of the signal, and the one more need is to practically realizable antenna design and antenna size. So the one we can say is to fourth one is to avoid the mixing of signal, to avoid the mixing of signals. That's why the different signals have different carriers, and to increase the range of communication, to increase the range of communication, to decrease the length of transmitting and receiving antenna, the size by using modulation technique we can practically design a realizable antenna. So to decrease the length or size of transmitting and receiving antenna, and to improve the quality of reception, to and by reducing the effect of noise on the signal. So to improve the quality of reception, to remove eighth one is to remove the interference or effect of noise on signal. So these are the things that required a modulation. So now let's discuss about one or more terms. Here we have mentioned that is the baseband signal, that is the modulating signal or baseband signal. So what is the baseband signal? So the baseband signal is a signal having significant frequency component. The baseband signal is basically a signal which has a significant frequency component near to zero or low frequency. We can say is a signal having significant frequency component near to zero or low frequencies. And base band pass signal is a signal having a significant frequency component away from zero frequency or low frequency. And the noise, the term noise is basically mainly added in the channel when the signal is transmitted from transmitter side and it is received at the receiver side. The in between the noise is mainly added in the channel. So these are the terms. And one more thing about the carrier is the carrier frequency is much higher than the massive signal frequency. We keep the carrier frequency much higher than the message signal frequency so that we can reduce the antenna size.